Okay, so here is one of my biggest ahas after my third shoulder surgery. Not just that, after my third shoulder surgery, and then a couple months later, moving back to the state of Washington to live with my daughter, my son-in-law, and my, at that time, 18-month-old grandson to help recover. My daughter came to visit me in August after my third September surgery in September, and she was just like, Mom, you got to move back. Come and live with us and get better. So I did, and it was when I moved back to Washington. Now let me tell you, previous to that, from May 21st, my first surgery, through that August, I'd been going to physical therapy 2 to 3 times a week with no significant improvement. I mean, the pain was incredible. My second surgery, August 3rd, sent me back so much. I just remember the agonizing pain going through that physical therapy and the therapist trying to force things, and it was just really hard. And so all that time, May 21st through September 30th in Utah, I've been going to physical therapy, like I said, 2 to 3 times a week that whole time, and just struggling with getting better, really struggling. So came back to Washington, went to see a physical therapist here, and that was when I had this aha moment. The therapist was great. He directed me to get, he went online right there in the office and directed me to get a pulley system that was on Amazon, really ridiculously cheap. So when I went home, I went and sought out that pulley system. And you know how Amazon has these, what people viewed this product, there's other things that they viewed as well. Magical, right? So I looked at those things, and what did I see but this book, Workbook, the Frozen Shoulder Workbook. It was like, oh my gosh, I knew I had to have it. See, back in 1996 in April, I had a volleyball injury that led to disease, complex regional pain syndrome, and had a lot of invasive, almost lost my life. It was so invasive in the spine and pain medications, all this, that I literally almost crashed on the table there. And by God's grace, the nurse came in before I totally coded, and so I knew at that point I was done with those dangerous, invasive procedures. I appreciate all their effort to get me back to walk and not lose the function of my right foot and ankle. But I knew that I had to gain things for myself to help me with this awful disease I had just been diagnosed with. And the same thing with my shoulder. It was pain medication, physical therapy, all this stuff that was being done to me and stuff like that. I just knew I had to take, control of that. And here was this workbook. And as I looked through this workbook and read, I learned, here I'm a nurse, right? And I learned about trigger points. It was like, oh my gosh, why did not anybody tell me about this? Why did no surgeons tell me about this? Why, when I complained, oh my goodness, remember after my first surgery, I went in for my first or second post-op, and it was like, under my arm hurt so bad. And he's like, I didn't work there. It's nothing. He just totally discounted it. Even with physical therapy, I would describe that, my back, oh my shoulder, scapula pain, so much pain was going on besides my surgical and incisional pain and just the movement of that. And nobody said anything. So here, after all that time, I had to come to Washington State to stumble upon it on Amazon. I learned about trigger points. So it was like, oh, so this is where I could kind of help take care of myself, which was true, but it also talked about massage. And how massage therapists can really work on those trigger points. So I did a lot of what I could do on my own, but I did, and so I really recommend, I'm going to give you the link to this. Really, really recommend this. It's an incredible step for you to help take control of yourself. And I'm going to do a video with my amazing massage therapist, Levi. Again, just blessed. I came to Washington and living in a small town with my daughter, and I just prayed because there was like, I don't think there's a massage therapist that knows about trigger points. Just prayed on it, and did a Google search, Google search, and pop up this Groupon special massage therapist 4 miles from my daughter's house. And so I grabbed it, right? And I called him, And when I spoke to Levi, I told him kind of my story, and I mentioned trigger points. He goes, Kathy, that's why I went into massage therapy. He had learned about trigger points. He was working with special needs kids, and a parent had mentioned to him to help work with his kid on a trigger point. And he said, I worked on it. I felt the muscle just melt. And he said, I knew from there, just a great man of faith, that I needed to become a massage therapist. And so here God had put an incredible individual with great skill and understanding into my life. So that first appointment with Levi, just knowledgeable, and he within a few minutes had diagnosed all these situations. My shoulder was actually cinched up so tight that when I moved that, my arm, I mean, it wasn't separate. I had no scapula muscle. I had no trap muscle. So much had atrophied, and my shoulders were up. He had to, really teach me to be down and back. So all these things, and I was bawling. I was crying. He was so sweet. It's okay to cry. It's okay to cry. Because really when you get a massage, it just releases all these emotions going on. And he mentioned, we got to the point of talked about under the arm, and he said, that's probably where your source is. So kind of the onion peeling. And I just, again, I just wept and wept. And it's like, finally, Levi, you're listening to me. You have answers for me. You're not just saying, oh, I didn't work there. It's nothing. It truly was something. So again, this is a great thing to help you understand your body, the trigger points, the shoulder. There's also one for the whole body, because we have trigger points all over the body. But when you can start to understand how your body's functioning, and I will tell you, and this book talks about it, a lot of surgeries could be avoided. And I have to believe that even mine, I know the shoulder impingement, it even talks about, like, even with that, because everything's kind of condensed, that with the trigger points, it kind of loosens and opens up. Who knows whether it could have been avoided. However, God turns everything that Satan tries to put in our life, and he did a number on me. He really caused me to get into a dark time where I couldn't even pray. That's a scary time, when I could not even get the strength, motivation, or the faith to pray. Yeah, Satan had control over me. So he will use all these things to distract us, think that, God isn't there, and look at God's letting you go through this time. No, God wasn't doing that. I mean, it was stuff that I had done on my own, and then health and not eating right, etc. But God uses everything for good, and I know that that's the reason I'm doing this information for you. And again, in Washington, when I came back and went to an orthopedic specialist and talked about things, she said, for one thing, don't ever have surgery unless it's life-threatening, just because my body, with that complex regional pain syndrome, is kind of this weird neurological thing going on with my body. She said, don't let them do that. And I mentioned, you know what, there's got to be other people like me. I'm going to do a blog. And she goes, you got to do, because there is going to be, even if it's one person, if it's you and you're the only one on earth that I can help, it's worth it. It's worth it. So get this book. It will teach you so much. And then pray about massage, and know that, yes, it's money, but it's also giving back your body. That's why I told Levi, you've given me back my life. Seriously, where I went from before, I was this closed up, tight, painful, guarding individual, that I would not have progressed out of that. I wouldn't have had an answer. I just would have stayed that way and gotten worse and worse and worse.